this video I want to explore the Great Pyramid and examine some of the very important features of it. And if you're familiar at all with, especially certain researchers have been, basically since John Taylor in the 17 through to the 1800s, many researchers have noticed some very key features about the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and one of the most important features about that pyramid is the geometry. And what does geometry translate to? Geo is earth, metry is measure. So with geometry, it comes down to measuring the earth. It's a lot more than just the standard view. And this is very important because this is in regards to the Great Pyramid and one of the very important observations and claims regarding this. Now, you might be familiar, there are various versions of this type of illustration. Now, firstly, we have the square and the circle, which is an amazing element regarding the ratio of the Great Pyramid, pi, phi, and this one of the most important questions in regards to geometry, squaring the circle, circling the square. Now, the common theme which has been running through is that the Great Pyramid is a scale model of one hemisphere at the Earth at the ratio of 1 to 43,200. I've covered this in other videos, and I believe well, there's a much more elegant way, a much more important way to look at it, and that this, although technically correct, is rather inelegant, and also it's been repeated, and well, they're not really getting it correct because the Great Pyramid itself is not scaled to the Earth that way. You need to understand the construction and the other elements of underneath and around the Great Pyramid to truly understand this. Okay, so what we have here, we can see the casing stones, but here you can see the what's called the socle or the paving stones. Now, this is a very important element in regards to understanding how the Great Pyramid is a scale model of the Earth, not the half of the Earth, but the whole Earth. And here's like another, so we can see the casing stones, which allowed, so we're going to be working off the survey of J.H. Cole. Now these surviving stones were able to give us the angle of the pyramid and therefore to get the exact height because the top of the pyramid is missing. And so with these we can work out with some trig, and we get what the height of the pyramid is. But what's very important is this portion here, the paving stones. That's vital in understanding this, whether you're thinking 432 or, as I'm going to show you, it's 86,400. Another important element in regards to understanding that scale, the ratio of the pyramid to the size of the Earth, is the sockets. Now, at each corner of the pyramid there are these sockets, which are an important part in the construction. They're holding the pyramid together at the corner, stopping the bits from slipping out. However, they're also key, fundamental in understanding the scale of the Great Pyramid. And so we have, now this is from Matthew Flinders Petrie, and there's also been another survey. This was by, well, Petrie's direct distance, but it was rechecked later, I think the Royal Engineers. But what we have, and so we can see these points Q, P, R, and S. They're the corners of the pyramid, and there we have the sockets on each side. Now you might know, firstly you'll see that they're all slightly different, or sometimes very, very different, much different in size, but also how much they protrude from each side. Now this is, again, very important in understanding the pyramid being in a certain ratio to the Earth. And, well, I'm going to show you it's 43,200. While technically you could say it's correct, it's rather inelegant, and by looking at it that way we actually miss some very, very important metrological and geodetic geometry, earth-based measure systems. And so here, just as an example, so we see the pyramid itself sits on the socle, and on each of the corners we have the socket. Again, it's a way of protecting the corners from slipping out. It's an important element of the construction, but also in regards to the measurement and proportions of the pyramid. And so there I've highlighted the sockets, and we can see there the paving stones. Now let's examine the Great Pyramid as a model of the half Earth, and this is 43,200. And so now I've highlighted the base of the pyramid in regards to the sockets. So the sockets are there, they're protruding on each side. You can see how they're all slightly different, very different. And I'm working off the survey of J.H. Cole in regards to the pyramid size. Now that's very important because this survey, which is basically identical to the Egyptian government survey done at the same time, this was, again, it matches up with Matthew Flinders Petrie's earlier survey, and there was another survey in 1981 which again confirms these measurements. Now, one of the measures that gets repeated is the ones by Howard Weiss. The importance of Petrie's, especially J.H. Cole's, was it was done when the rubble was removed. So there were earlier surveys to this, but they were working, they couldn't do an exact measure because there was a lot of rubble around the base of the pyramid, and in some cases they weren't the surveyor that Matthew Flinders Petrie was, or J.H. Cole, or this Egyptian government survey. So this data has been verified, and it is the superior one, not the Howard Weiss survey. And recent surveys with laser have shown this again. So this is I'll be using these exact numbers. There are slight variations between Petrie, J.H. Cole and the 1981 survey, but they are so slight as to be tiny margins of error. So what we have is that for instance, this illustration, which shows the Great Pyramid is a scale model of the hemisphere of the Earth at 43,200, and that's saying that beginning with the perimeter of the pyramid, and here we see the total perimeter, and using again the exact numbers, not the rounded off ideal measures, so we've got to be precise with these things, and we have the perimeter based on J.H. Cole. If you multiply that by 43,200, there we get in 39,000 kilometers, while the equatorial circumference of the Earth is actually 40,075. Now, different measures of the Earth will give us, it might seem a considerably different number. For instance, it might go down to as low as 40,030 kilometers. Now, it might seem a big discrepancy, but because of tidal forces, for instance, the pull of the moon on the Earth bulges ever so slightly, around about 10 feet, or even less than that. But even a 1 foot bulge in the Earth, when you can add that up and add it to the circumference, will add quite a bit of distance. So whether it's 40,030 kilometers or up to this point, it is essentially accurate. It's about when you measure it and how you measure it. But we still notice quite a large discrepancy of over 200 kilometers. And that's, if you're using the base of the pyramid, that's going to be the problem. But the issue is not in regards to the base of the pyramid itself. You have to include the sockets. Now, I've now highlighted the perimeter of the sockets, but you'll notice, for instance, the southwestern socket sticks out ever so slightly, and each of these other ones again are a slight variation. So there is a serious problem posed by this, and we'll have a look at that and there are more issues than that. But to begin with, we do have an issue here in regarding how do we measure what is the base perimeter regarding the sockets. Now, secondly, the height of the pyramid multiplied by 43,200 will give us the polar radius of the Earth, half measure of the Earth, and that again in itself is not a good thing. But so 481.09, give or take a fraction, is the original height of the pyramid, and if you multiply that by 43,200, we get 6,334 kilometers. And again, now we have a significant enough discrepancy. It's still very close and it's very impressive. However, if we include the socle or the paving stones, which will give us an extra 55 centimeters of height, and therefore 147.186 meters, there we get almost, well, as good as well within acceptable margins of error in regards to the polar radius of the Earth. Now, if you do a Google search and you go to the first one, you go, well, it's exactly this number. You need to understand that when they measure these things, it's not just like a single snapshot. Again, there's all sorts of, the Earth is not static. It's not exactly the same all the time. And it's got to, and for instance, Antarctica has large mountains, as where the North Pole has just ice. Now, do you measure the mountains in Antarctica and the ice above? So those discrepancies here are well within margins of error, and also what you could call margins of definition, because yeah, it's exactly how do you measure these things in regards that there's a mountain here, but there's a sea level at the top, and so that needs to be considered as well. So what are the problems with the 43,200 to 1 model of the Earth? Now, firstly, the sockets are not uniform, so the perimeter is awkward. That's one of the first of the problems. Secondly, it only describes 1/2 of the Earth, which is inelegant as well, because it's, well, the Earth is not a half sphere, it's a spheroid, it's a whole globe. Secondly, it's also inelegant because it requires two views. So we need a side view and the top view. This is two-dimensional thinking for a three-dimensional object. The pyramid is not a triangle and a square, it's a pyramid, and that's where we need to think about it. So there is a solution to this, and that's to think of a pyramid and the Earth. Well, think of a pyramid as a pyramid and think of the Earth as a whole, not a half. So instead of a flat piece of paper, let's think about the pyramid as a solid. And also, very important, because this will bring us to some very, very beautiful information in regards to ancient Egyptian knowledge, the Great Pyramid and measure systems. And we need to include not only the three-dimensional thinking, we need to think about another dimension, and that is the dimension of time. And so let's bring this up. And the unit of measure universally accepted to be used at the Great Pyramid is the Old Kingdom Egyptian Royal Cubit, which is pi over 6 meters, so 0.5236 meters. And why is that relevant to time? Well, a 1 meter, like 1 second, so the 1 second is going to be, so the cubit and the second of 86,400 seconds per day is vital in understanding this, because it's been done for quite some time. Now the definition of a meter has changed over time, but originally it was a 1 second pendulum. Vital in industry, vital in music, vital in so many elements. Small units of time are critical in you name it. It's one of, just as weights and measures is fundamental in creating a order and stability in a society, so is time. And this 30 degrees, which has been for a long time the basis, if you swing a pendulum within this 30 degrees, what you get is a 1 second timing based on a 1 meter pendulum, which gives us an arc of exactly 1 Egyptian Royal Cubit as described by the Great Pyramid. So we have the second, the cubit, and the meter all coming together. Why is that important? Well, we need to consider the dimension of time. And there are 86,400 seconds per day. So, okay, just going to pause a moment. So, as we've seen, the cubit, the Royal Egyptian Cubit, as defined by the Great Pyramid, like the New Kingdom Cubit was different, but has been generally accepted. 440 Royal Egyptian Cubits, pi over 6 meters, within less than the width of a hair, and that defines, we have the second and the Egyptian Royal Cubit coming together, 86,400 seconds per day. Now, this 30-degree angle also corresponds beautifully to the position of the Great Pyramid. Well, the Giza pyramids are pi kilometers south of the 30th parallel, But Heliopolis, the center of the mystery schools, is at 30 degrees north, and recent survey has shown that the Great Pyramids of Giza, the three pyramids, are directed at Heliopolis. So that has been, again, shown with the most modern survey techniques. Now, whether that was accidental or not is, well, doesn't really matter, but the fact is that it was. However, that it connects to the pendulum, the Royal Cubit, and the second of 86,400 seconds per day is very important. And if we examine, so we go back, we need to consider that the Great Pyramid, and instead of 43,200 ratio, which has many problems, still very wonderful. I'm not taking away anything from that, but we are able to make more connections and extract a whole bunch of more important knowledge, which connects us to many elements. And essentially, and the biggest problem with it is that it requires two views. It requires the side view and it requires the top view. So we need two. Basically, we're looking at the pyramid as a two-dimensional object from two different views on a piece of paper. But it's not a triangle and it's not a square, it's a pyramid, and the solution to that is think of a pyramid as a pyramid and the earth as a whole, not as a half. And then we consider time, and then we have 86,400 seconds per day. Now, well, the pyramid is a pyramid, and so let's go to the Great Pyramid, and not only well, we need to, there is one specific corner, and this resolves the issue of the sockets not corresponding with the perimeter. So the perimeter, based on 43,200, there's a significant issue there because each of the sockets is different, and if we make a perimeter based on those, well, we lose quite a bit of accuracy. And so what we need to do is look at the pyramid as a three-dimensional object, and more specifically we need to look at it from the northeast corner. And in those diagrams I've shown, but let's, for instance, so if you're standing at the northeast corner of the pyramid, pause, I've got a slow connection here. But what happens is, now I've done some other videos to show that each of the corners of the pyramid in these slight apparent mistakes, what might be described by some, actually contains profound knowledge, where the discrepancy between accurate pi and accurate phi are actually resolved by looking at each corner having a different meaning. But the northeast corner, and now we see the maximum visible base. So the pyramid is a three-dimensional object, and here we can now the most you can ever see of a pyramid is two sides. If you look at it as a piece of paper, as a two-dimensional object, well, we can see the side of it and we can see the top. But that's wrong think. The correct one is this one, and that's to look at the pyramid as a pyramid, and we can see the maximum observable base. And so now if we include the socle, or the paving stones, which are beneath, and we include the sockets, which are at each corner, what we get is this 147.186 meters and 463.81289 meters, including the sockets, including the socle standing at the northeast corner of the three-dimensional pyramid. 86,400 seconds per day, which links us to the pendulum. They were using those. That's very important. How did they do their timing? How do people even previous time calibrate whether it's a water clock or an hourglass? The pendulum has been passed through. Now, standing at the northeast corner, what we have to begin with is the rotational speed of the Earth per second, the 86,400 seconds per day, defined by the Egyptian Royal Cubit, an old kingdom, which is the cubit recognized to be the one used on the Great Pyramid itself. Multiply, so this is within accuracy equivalent to, or 99.999999% accurate compared to the best modern satellite surveys. Now again, the base. Now if we go to 86,400 is what we need to consider. This is the pyramid ratio. I am quite certain, confident of it, because it encompasses so much more important knowledge, which also crosses over to the ancient Indus civilization and to the Sumerian Babylonian civilization, and I'll cover that in the next part. But what we have, if we multiply the maximum visible base times 86,400, we get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. So already, because of the sockets, what we have is we've resolved the issue of the irregular sockets. The northeast corner and those sockets that are visible, 1, 2, and 3, create this ratio. So we have essentially perfection emerging from that. If you multiply the height of the Great Pyramid, including the socle, by 86,400, we get the polar diameter of the Earth. So we've resolved the issue of the sockles, and we've resolved the issue of the half Earth. And this is based on three-dimensional thinking. So 43,200, you've got to go. It's 86,400, and because of these reasons I've shown and other ones, we'll go. Now I'll put this link in the description. I'm migrating over to VidMe. I'll still be on YouTube at least for a short time, but we'll see how it goes. There are certain issues in regards to that. Also, I'm on Minds, and I'll put the links in there in the description. But if we go back and we bring up, so the Egyptian Royal Cubit, 86,400 seconds per day for 30 degrees necessary, because if you swing this pendulum further than 30 degrees, we lose that 1 second, and that's why the 30 degrees is not arbitrary. It's important in regards to this. And it also, well, it corresponds to so many other important parts, but 86,400 seconds. Now, something else to consider, that the 86,400 being this number which connects so much of, not just in regards to the cubit, the Great Pyramid scaling to the size of the Earth, it also brings us to, okay, my program might have crashed, let's go, but it connects us to important legends and metrology, measurement systems of other civilizations such as Sumer and the Indus. Now, so we need, again, the meter is a unit of time. Now, something else to consider is that the Greenwich, so what was called the French meter, if we go to the Greenwich Observatory, which is now where we base our navigation and time, we find that the 86,400 is, now the pendulum varies as you move north or south of the equator because of variations of a difference in gravity, but at Greenwich it is 86,400 using the French meter. Now what's interesting about Greenwich is that it's a sliver, so the Great Pyramid angle also coincidentally defines the position of Greenwich North. Now around about this same time as 1812, 1850s, you'll find there are some amazing documents in regards to them discussing the origins of weights and measure and how it connects to the Great Pyramid, and there's so much amazing stuff. It's really mind-blowing. Now, why else is this important? So there we see the model of so as I've shown, 86,400 looking from, because 864 is a number that delivers this. Using the 43,200 version of the Great Pyramid scale in comparison to the Earth does not reveal this, and this is why this is so important to not just nitpicking in regards to it. And again, it was wonderful work by the earlier researchers. However, we need to revisit this, and because not only does it the 86,400 correct some of the very important issues in regards to the 43,200 scale, and so we resolve the discrepancy in the sockets. We also resolve the issue of the that being a scale a representation of the half of the Earth, and the Earth, of course, is not a half sphere, it's a total sphere. And so the problem with 43,200 is therefore resolved. And it also brings us to important knowledge, because we can break away from the two-dimensional thinking. The pyramid is not a square and a triangle, it is a pyramid, and we need to think of it as such. And using three-dimensional thinking, even more emerges from the wonderful pi and phi relationships. It connects us to time, it connects us to ancient units of measure, and again, it's just all, it's all there, and again, testable and measurable. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed. Please share this widely. I have tried to share this with some people, but it's sort of, all I hear is crickets. And so I have to say, yeah, so the 43,200 is very nice, but it's essentially, not only is it not correct in the most correctness way you can have it, it also restricts the ability to understand these other connections which emerge from the ancient units of length and measurement and of area, and how these ancient civilizations from Egypt through Sumer to India and beyond connects. And for further information in regards to that, I will be putting some links in the description there. If you're truly interested in this, you really need to read through them, because it also connects to some earlier work I've done in regards to connections, expanding the known connections between and musical ratios between all these units of measurement, and how it's just simply extraordinary. And it goes through the so-called lost knowledge of the Egyptians. Was never lost, it was passed through cultures, it was built through the Babylonian to the Persians to the Greeks to the Romans and elsewhere and everywhere in between. And there it is there for you. Again, yes, please, if you have questions, or if you have something to prove me wrong, so to speak, I think, and if you have any issues at all, yeah, you can feel free to comment, and do please share this. I think it not only resolves some issues, but it's of vital importance into the further understanding of this. 43,200 is limited. It's two-dimensional thinking of a three-dimensional object. It also loses the element of time. This is much more elegant. It's much more in depth, and it's a much stronger proof of this ancient knowledge.